How many steroids were taken between Triple H and Bautista last night? How many cycles of D-ball was consumed leading up into that match?
What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking about Dave Bautista and what I think he did in the past to build his physique up, and what I think he probably does now in his later years to sustain that muscle mass and maintain a really impressive physique, even going into his decades into his career. So the first thing I did when I started researching this video was go and see if there was any interviews where Dave talked openly about steroid use. Like, these are usually long shots, but sometimes you'll find clips of people flat out asking them and them dodging the question or them answering in some roundabout way. And I ended up finding nearly nothing. And I found one video which was, it's kind of interesting. It was called the top 10 wrestlers who took steroids. And I guess these were based on factual proof rather than speculation based on positive test results. And I scrolled down on the top comment, Nick Strength and Power from 4 years ago. I guess probably almost 5 years ago. This is 2015. You're really going to include Edge and Jeff Hardy, but not include Bautista, John Cena, The Rock, or Triple H, some of the most obvious roid heads in the business. I thought it was kind of funny because I actually follow this guy's channel now, and I don't know if he'd even remember making that comment, but I agree. Bautista falls pretty much into the same category as John Cena, in my opinion, and similar to The Rock. If you go back to their beginnings, they all had great genetics from the beginning. Like Dave Bautista, when you go back and look at him as early as going from 15 years old as a rail to 18 years old, he already has a better physique than 99% of people at the gym. And this guy has just started working out pretty much, and he's competing in a bodybuilding competition here, and his physique looks awesome. Like, he has a visible six-pack. I don't know how much he weighs here, but he has a good V-taper. He just looks good overall. It's kind of a low-quality picture, so it's hard to pick up a lot, but you can tell from what you can see that he's in great shape and, has a physique that a lot of people would aspire to by the end of, several years of working out, not just within, like, a year. And as he gets into his 20s, he really just explodes in size. And the majority of his size he puts on in his mid-20s until at 30 he kind of peaks in, I wouldn't say body composition. It's certainly not his best body composition, but you can tell he's really starting to crank it up a notch in terms of packing on actual body weight and trying to bulk up. He's gone above and beyond even what he had in his late 20s, where he was relatively fluffy still, but had a level of conditioning. And going into his early 30s, he really had to crank it up a notch, probably to size up for professional, well, I don't know if you even call it professional wrestling, but I guess professional wrestling, whatever people want to call it, whatever the sport of role playing is in the WWE. So professional wrestling. And he seems to peak in his mid 30s, where he kind of has achieved the most size with simultaneous leanness that he has for the duration of his career. And we can see here at 33 years old at WWE 2002, he was 33 years old, and supposedly on paper, his height and weight was recorded at 6'5", 375 pounds. And he's gone on record in interviews before saying how his peak weight was 375 pounds.
At one point I was, even throughout my wrestling career, I was 290 through most of my career. At one point, like I said, I was 370 pounds. So this weight is so easy. This is just a natural body weight for me.
So in 2002, he was supposedly 375 pounds at 6'5". And then in 2007, at 38 years old, he was reportedly 380 pounds, which to me is a baffling statistic, because there's no fucking way this guy weighs 380 pounds and is this lean and looks this proportional still. Like, if you've seen bodybuilders who are pushing the 300 pound mark with visible abs, they look twice as big as this. And if I actually went and looked at his real stats online, and while I was digging, I found some pictures of him standing beside, I guess, other celebrities and stuff. And the weird thing was, I found this image with just a couple other chicks, and I'm assuming this chick is not 6'7", and these chicks are probably not 6'1" and 6'2". So I don't know why it's saying he's 6'5". So I went and dug a bit more, and there's a lot of the internet also claims he's 6'6". So I was like, what the fuck? And I dug a bit harder, and then I found some more articles where it says, although WWE billed his height as a mammoth 6'6", Dave's real height is just over 6'2". So if the WWE is willing to fudge your height by that much, like, for people to take seriously drug tests in the WWE as a sign of actual natty regulation, it's kind of fucking ridiculous.
And so they had to eliminate it. They have to do it themselves. They have like a super strict policy.
Bro.
I'm serious.
Super strict.
Yeah.
You tell me Bautista and The Rock are clean? No. Watch your words, sir.
Come on, The Rock? You think The Rock's on steroids?
Yes. You don't think Hulk Hogan ever had a needle in his fucking mouth?
So obviously this is all, marketing by the WWE, at least in my opinion, to any kind of attempt to avoid labeling athletes as steroid users in the WWE, to me, is just laughable. And I'm surprised so many people fell for it. And even until recent day, people still believe that a lot of the wrestlers in that league are clean. Like the fudging of the height, lying about gear, even lying about body weight. Like, there's no fucking way, in my opinion, that Bautista is nearly single-digit body fat percentage at 380 pounds unless his bones are made of fucking plutonium. Like, there's just no way. So, not only are the stats fudged, but the claims of being natural when they're obviously not, it's kind of just ridiculous in my opinion. So, I think it goes without a doubt, without even having to dig into it, that Bautista probably sauced throughout the majority of his career. And of course, that's just speculation on my part, but I think it is a pretty damn good guess. Now, as far as what he did throughout the entirety of his career, like I mentioned, he kind of exploded in his mid-20s and then had another explosion in his early 30s where he kind of peaked at what many would consider to be like almost national bodybuilder level size. Obviously, his muscle inserts are not as good as, a successful bodybuilder, but he's fucking huge. He has huge traps. He has a huge chest. He has a decent back. Some of his body parts are kind of disproportionate, which is probably why he would have actually never made it in bodybuilding, but you can't take away from the fact that his physique is nuts and he's just a fucking massive human. He's certainly nowhere near the build 380 near single digits, but he's probably in the high 200s at least. At his height of 6'2", just based on what he looked like walking around in the ring, I'd probably guess he was around 260, 270-ish. Maybe more, maybe 280 if he was lucky, and that would be generous, I feel like. I could be wrong, but I don't see 300 plus being held in this frame here. But again, that's kind of irrelevant. At the end of the day, I don't think he's natural, and as far as what I think he took throughout his career, I think the progression of his physique was so substantial, the amount of weight he packed on and the intensity of the sport he was competing in and the body composition that is expected of these athletes is so outrageous that it would be short-sighted, in my opinion, to think he did anything less than the full gambit of trying nearly everything. I'm sure throughout from his early 20s up until his mid-30s, he tried a plethora of different performance-enhancing drugs, but his staples, I'm sure, were the tried and true, testosterone-based, nandrolone for packing on size, maybe some orals like D-bol and Anadrol for peaking for shows to show up sharper, perhaps throwing in a trend for that recomp effect, antagonism of glucocorticoid receptors, throwing in some DHT derivatives for a drying out effect to kind of clean up the look a bit. And drugs on top of that, growth hormone, I'm sure he's probably even using today for his quote-unquote HRT regimen or whatever it is that he's probably doing right now. At the end of the day, I don't think this is too dissimilar to what I would speculate a guy like John Cena is doing throughout his 20s and 30s. He probably tried, everything from anabolics to GH to insulin. And as far as what anabolics, I'm sure at one time or another, he tried pretty much everything. Not just the tried and true testosterone and DECA. I'm sure he probably expanded his horizons into different compounds in the 19-nor and DHT derivative categories, as well as the testosterone derivatives. I'm sure he's shopped from all of those categories quite thoroughly throughout his entire career. But pushing into the 40s, and Dave Bautista's in his 50s now, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he's more longevity-minded at this point. Once you start to get into your 40s, you start start to realize that bodybuilders left and right are dropping like flies who are pushing 260 lean. And it's not necessarily just the steroid use, it's also the sheer stress on the cardiovascular system of carrying so much lean body mass. So I'm sure Bautista is well aware of this, and he sort of seemed to transition his training style to a more athletic training model rather than training like a pure bodybuilder, and he's downsized a decent amount in the past decade, and I'm sure his dosages have proportionally gone down as well as the compound selection I'm sure is a lot more reasonable and probably something that can be prescribed by a doctor at a TRT clinic, and he's probably getting it all through legal means at this point. I'm sure he's probably on a generous replacement dose of TRT. And when I say replacement, I mean he's probably pushing the super physiological boundaries, but it's probably bioidentical hormone replacement at this point. There would be no benefit for him at 50 plus years old to be pushing his body with things like tren, with things like EQ, with things like anadrol, D-bol, any of that kind of stuff. I'm sure he is likely sticking with bioidentical hormone replacement at this point, with the tried and true retirement stack essentially for bodybuilders, which is a high dose of TRT with growth hormone, and maybe he has metformin or something in there for anti-aging and longevity. Who really knows? But I think that it would be unlikely that he's really pushing his body still. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if he throws in a, quote unquote therapeutic dose of DECA on top of that to prepare for athletic roles and needs to beef up a little bit. But I'm sure the risk does not go significantly above and beyond those compounds when it comes to his body composition goals at this point of his life. Throughout his 30s, I'm sure he pushed the boundaries in all capacities and probably tried pretty much everything, as I'm sure most of the other guys in the WWE did, who had massive, monstrous physiques with near single digit body fat percentage. But now, as they start to get older, they have to be more longevity minded, and it would be prudent of them to start balancing their priorities, which I'm sure a lot of them are doing, and they seem to be doing as they downsize and probably make more intelligent choices when it comes to their performance enhancing drug use. So that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think Bautista is natural or not? And if not, what do you think he's probably doing now? Any and all comments are appreciated, as they help the algorithm and help push the video to a new audience that may not otherwise see it. If you want to support the video and the channel too, if you can like it, it helps push the algorithm for YouTube. Also, if you listen to the podcast, if you can drop a 5-star rating there, that helps the algorithm on iTunes as well. Follow me on Instagram too. I post unique stuff on my stories there, here and there. So it'd be cool if you follow me there as well. And Facebook, the organic reach is trash. So a video here that gets like 100,000 views gets like 100 views on Facebook. So if you can follow me there, that would be appreciated, as it would help grow the brand on multiple platforms, not just here, as well as where else am I? Snapchat, Twitter, BitChute, TikTok, wherever I am. If you want to listen instead of watch, all the podcast links are in the description below as well. Spotify, wherever I am. If you want to support the channel, check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My turnkey nootropic and pre-workout formulas. The nootropics are for anybody looking for an edge in the focus, creativity, and productivity aspect of their life, whether it's for studying, preparing for business presentations, working, getting more work done in less hours, or working for longer hours while staying attentive and on the ball and super sharp while you work those longer hours. The nootropics are geared towards anybody who needs a mental edge essentially, and needs that extra bump in mental sharpness and focus, as well as a big boost in energy. And then obviously the pre-workouts, self-explanatory what those do. I compel you to pull out your current pre if you use one and just compare the label to mine. And I'm pretty transparent when I say compare them, and it becomes pretty obvious why you should switch once you compare the labels, in my opinion. I literally sit on a Word document and write these out from scratch to ensure we have a top of the industry product, and I take a lot of pride in the formulas, and I think you'll enjoy them. Anything else I'm associated with, my TRT clinic, my blood test for health management, anything else that supports the channel, you can check it out in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.